Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is the start of something great. Daily uploads. If you guys didn't watch yesterday's video, go watch it. Pretty much so. I quit my job and doing YouTube full time, so I can do daily uploads now, and I'm super excited. Thank you guys so much. And I thought we would start with a good, bad, and ugly on the BMW E39. I know it's nothing like super special to celebrate, but I am working on two like pretty special videos for hitting 20,000 subscribers. Those will be coming out pretty soon. But yeah, today's the E39 good, bad, and ugly. If you want to see your car in a future good, bad, and ugly, leave a comment down below. I already have a couple lined up, so next time is probably going to be the Lexus IS 250/350 second generation, and then the next one after that is actually going to be the Cadillac Escalade, all 5 generations. But if you guys would like to see another car, let me know down below, and yeah, we'll get it done. But thank you guys so much once again for all the support. I cannot believe that we can actually do this for a job now. It is amazing. You guys are the best people in the entire world. I cannot wait to upload every day. It's gonna be awesome. I can't wait to see the ideas that come from it, all that stuff. It's just gonna be fun. But thank you guys so much. Anyways, let's get right into the video. If you want to support the channel any more than you already are, head on over to www.smoothstance.com/shop to pick yourself up a hat, shirt, or shorts. And with all that out of the way, let's get right into the video. Alright, so the BMW E39 is actually the 4th generation of the wonderful 5 Series line within BMW. The name E39 is actually just the chassis code of the car, and people commonly call this car the E39 because BMW will use the exact same names over the years with their different generations of cars. I know that sounds kind of confusing, but for example, like the 3 Series, they have a 328i. They've had a 328i since the E36, and they've gone through the E36, E46, E9X, the F30, and now we're in the G30, and they're still making 328i's. So to make it easier, people go by the chassis codes. Now, the body styles for this car were a sedan or a wagon, but there was no convertible or coupe options available for this car, since that's not what the 5 Series was about. It's meant to be an insanely fast family luxury sedan that's built to kind of like rival the higher like S-Class Mercedes in a way, and like the Audi S4s and S5s. Now we're going to get into the trim levels and engines, but you guys gotta kind of bear with me here because it gets a little bit hard to understand with BMW trim levels. So it goes like this. First off is the 520i. It came with a 2-liter inline-6 that made 148 horsepower. That's the lowest trim level. Next is the 523i. It came with a 2.5-liter inline-6 making 168 horsepower, which is okay. The 525i also came with a 2.5-liter inline-6, but this one made 189 horsepower. But the 528i came with a 2.8-liter inline-6 that made 190 horsepower, only one more than the 525i. The 530i came with a 3-liter inline-6 making 228 horsepower. The 535i came with a 3.5-liter V8 making 241 horsepower. The 540i, which is the most commonly bought one because it's still affordable but also is pretty powerful, came with a 4.4-liter V8 that made 290 horsepower. And finally, the legendary M5 is the top of the trim levels that you can get, the fastest one, the most expensive one as well, and it came with a 4.9-liter V8 that made 394 horsepower, pretty much 400 horsepower. That is an insane number of horsepower, especially for its time. That is amazing. It was so good that it was actually the fastest sedan of all time when it came out due to that reason. Huge props to you, BMW. To make the trim levels a little bit easier to understand for you, with these BMW ones, you usually just take the last 2 numbers in the name, for example, the 30 in 530i, and that will most likely be the engine size, or at least very, very close to it. I hate to make you even more confused, but there was also diesel options available for this car, but the only way the car has a diesel engine is if it has the letter D after the numbers. So, for example, 320D is going to be a diesel BMW. If it doesn't have the D, then it's a gas-powered car. Now, all these options were available as rear-wheel drive only, and the car was available as automatic or a manual transmission, but the manual is absolutely 100% the way to go. Now that we are finally done going over the actual car itself, let's talk about the modifying world. Well, the modifying scene for this car is kind of all over the place. They aren't like as popular as an E36 or something, so they don't have really a set like style to go with. But I would say the majority of them are kind of just like street builds. These cars don't really ever have an insane build going on behind them. It seems like people realize that they are just great for what they are, and they don't really need to change anything on them, and so they don't want to, because they don't want to destroy them and lose their value. The E39 was an amazing car when it came out, and people respect that about it. Plus, if you find the right model, these can be extremely reliable, so a lot of people use them as a great little daily driver, since they're just dirt cheap, rear-wheel drive, little fun sedans that you can fit all your homies in. But obviously, since they are rear-wheel drive, it does mean that some people have turned these things into drift monsters, and some people have built them to be drag monsters. But I would say the majority just like keeping them clean without ruining the driving experience of the car, but adding a little bit of flair to it, you know, maybe an exhaust, a cold air intake, maybe even a radiator or something like that, but never really like opening up the engine or adding forced induction to the car. Usually they just keep it relatively full bolt-ons, maybe stiffen up the ride a little bit, and they just enjoy it for what it is, which I can appreciate. It's like a purist kind of car. There's never any like huge wide body E39s. There's never any like huge graphic designs on the cars. They don't like gut the interiors of them. They're just pretty much kept relatively normal and just turn into little fast little cars. So we are finally into the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the way that this works, in case you're new here, is first I go over the good, which are things that are great and are amazing, you can't deny are good about the car. Then I go over the bad, which are things that are take it or leave it. If it affects you, then it affects you. If it doesn't affect you, then it doesn't affect you. And finally is the ugly, which are problems that you're going to have to address that are big elephants in the room problems. First, we're going to start with the good though, because I'm a nice man, and right off the bat is the performance for its time. It's incredible. I mean, it was literally the fastest sedan ever, and it was the fastest for quite some time too, and that's pretty freaking cool, bro. You cannot knock BMW for that. It is an amazing feat of technology. Next is the price is like as cheap as an E36, which honestly doesn't make much sense to me. Yes, you won't be able to find a V8 model for that cheap, but the inline sixes are still arguably better than the E36, and they're the exact same price. The E39 is a little bit heavier than the E36, I will say that, but either way, they're pretty much the same car. Some people would say that the E39 is even better. Next would be the aftermarket support for the engines is pretty damn large. BMW has a tendency to use the exact same engines in some of their models, and this car was no exception. So any model that had an engine that is shared in the E39 is obviously going to have the same parts for it. Next would be the interior now. Before you get all your panties in a bunch, yes, compared to today's cars, the interior on this car is lackluster, but back then, this was some cutting edge stuff, man, and it's not fair to compare it to like a brand new M5, obviously. So going back to the year 2000 when this car was around, I think it was pretty good. Next will be the way it drives is supposedly like just unmatched from many other cars. The handling isn't the best out there, but the comfort makes up for what it lacks in handling. It is incredibly comfortable while still being incredibly fast, which is really cool. Next is the cup holders are actually pretty good. We love to see some nice cup holders on this channel. Next is this is a sedan. I understand that this could be a bad thing if you like just have a thing for coupes, but the fact that this outperforms many, and I mean many, coupes, it's definitely saying something. You can fit 4 of your boys in the car while gapping like a 350Z. That's pretty cool. Next is the fact that they came in a freaking wagon. Anything that comes in a wagon is automatically 10 times cooler. Wagon cars are just so cool, and especially, and I mean especially, BMW wagons. They do wagons just so gosh darn well in Germany. The Audi Avants, wonderful cars. The BMW wagons, wonderful cars. The Mercedes wagons, wonderful cars. Germany, keep making your wagons. They're freaking sick. And finally, for the good is the community behind them. The BMW community as a whole can be incredibly toxic. I would argue one of the most toxic communities in the whole car scene. But I found that the E39 community in general is much more respectful, which is cool to see because there's not that many of them, and the ones that do have them all kind of like the same thing. They just like the E39 for what it is. They're not trying to be something that they're not, and they like that about each other. Now for the bad, and right off the bat is the sound. Of course it's the sound. I always start with the sound on these videos. Personally, I think it sounds great, and this is obviously going to differ based on what engine you decide to buy, but here's a clip of an M5 rev for you to decide. Once again, keep in mind that in case you don't buy the M5, it probably won't sound like this. Next is the reliability. This one is huge because some models are incredibly reliable and they deserve to be in the good spot, while others not so much and they deserve to be in the ugly spot. So I decided to just put it right here in the middle in the bad spot and tell you to make sure you can do your research before picking up whichever model that you go with. But pretty much the inline sixes tend to be a lot more reliable than the V8s. Next is the aftermarket support for cosmetics ain't that great. If you like wide body kits and huge wings, this is absolutely not the car for you. Next is the weight. They are pretty heavy cars compared to like a 3 Series at the time, or even an Audi 4 Series, which makes sense, but trust me, they do make up for it. They have enough power to push that heavy car, so if you're worried it's going to be slow, it's not. Next is the fact that they are rear-wheel drive only. I personally love that, but somebody might want to daily drive this in a winter area and just can't bring themselves to do it because they're too scared, and I understand. Next is the higher maintenance. BMWs tend to need a little bit extra love and care to keep the car running, but as long as you do that, you should be fine. People always underestimate that. They're always, oh, BMWs are so unreliable. No, you're just not taking good care of it. You need to take a lot more care of it than something like a Camry. Next is the doors apparently like to rust. That's a very weird spot to have rust so easily, but it's a thing, so just look out for it if you're going to pick one up. Next is basic small little things like the sunroof might stop working, the vacuum lines may be cracked, or the electric seats might be stuck, but this is all due just to old age and isn't really on the car itself. It's just because of time. Next is a lot of these have been neglected. Looking for one, you have to be incredibly careful because just nobody really expected these cars to want to be bought, and so now they were just sitting in a driveway their whole lives and they are going to need some love. Next is, even though the community is super nice, it's also super small. I personally like being a part of a larger community, but if you don't, then there's obviously no big deal here, and that's good for you. Finally, for the bad is the bags on the touring models. Well, they don't like to work, like at all. This can absolutely suck depending on how expensive that part is, but honestly, I would recommend just going to coilovers anyway. Alright, now we're into the ugly, and there's only two, so bear with me. First is the transmission problems. Both the automatic and manual transmissions in these cars aren't the most reliable out there, which is a huge bummer, but you can always swap it with a different trans if you really want to. While they're doing what they're supposed to do, they're good transmissions. They shift nicely, they're great, but they just like to break a little bit. And finally is the engine issues in the V8s. It's just inevitable, okay? The V8s were built to be performance cars, not daily drivers, and so obviously some things aren't going to be the most reliable. I will say that they still are not a bad choice though. It's not like they're as unreliable as a freaking Mazda RX-8 or something, but they just need a very patient owner who hopefully knows what he's doing, and you'll be fine. If you're going to buy this as like your first car and you want the V8 model, just do a lot of research, man. That's all I have to say. Just do a lot of research because you gotta take care of the engine for it to take care of you. Also, the gas mileage on the V8s aren't that great either. Just wanted to put it out there. That's pretty obvious, so it's a V8. So, do I, Marcus of the Rodent, think that you should buy a BMW E39? Well, positively, man. Depending on which one you decide to get, I think they're an absolutely amazing choice. The only downside I can see to an E39 is its old age, but after all, we're car guys, all right? We know these old cars aren't going to be the most reliable things on the planet, and we're okay with that because that's what makes it fun. Oh, is my car's crying again for the 4th time this week? Let's go. We're the kind of guys that pick the girls that have the mental problems because we like them. Now, for like a new driver, no, I don't think this is a great idea. Old BMWs need lots of maintenance, and it will teach you a lot about cars, but it's not going to teach you it in a fun, stress-free way. You're going to be very constantly thinking about what you have to do to this car, and the V8s are kind of tight in that engine bay, so it's not going to be easy to work on either. But yes, if you want one as a second car, a project car, or just like a weekend cruiser, I do think it's an amazing choice. It's just inevitable. It's a freaking M5. If you buy an M5, actually, even better. But even if it's not an M5, you're still buying a 5 Series BMW that was the fastest sedan of its time when it came out. If you buy the 540i, it's faster than a 350Z. Like, it's a great choice. But ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know what other car you'd like to see down below. Because after I do the Lexus and the Cadillac, we're gonna do some more. Another guy hit me up and asked for something, a GTI, that's what he asked for, Mark 1 or Mark 2 GTI, so I might do that. But yeah, let me know what you guys want to see, and I'll absolutely get it done. I'm super excited to be doing this full time, man. It's gonna be awesome. We're gonna be making so many bangers every freaking day. Tomorrow's gonna be part 5 of like the 1 to 100K series. It's gonna be good, man. And I'm also gonna try and work on tier lists. I want to get that out. I want to try and figure out how to do that. And I also still have to get the like celebration videos for reaching 20,000 subscribers out, so we'll do that too. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. Das Vidania. Have a nice night.